Thanks to computer games, becoming a different persona is no longer a dream. Playing and experimenting with different identities has become a vital part in the lives of millions of game fans around the world.
The fascination of computer games is that it becomes personal entertainment, that playing the game actually begins to say more about you as a person than it does about the game.
Computer games are becoming more and more realistic, their characters ever more authentic and humane. Perfect artificial worlds that make it increasingly hard to distinguish between simulation and reality.
Playing with your identity is play, but it's serious play. And things can get out of control.
Nowhere are computer games more popular than in South Korea. The internet and mobile phone technologies saved the country from the financial crisis in 1998. They've become the driving force and hope of the national economy. Despite the quick rise to success in the global online game and phone market, negative consequences can no longer be overlooked. Internet surfing and online gaming in public PC rooms are now primary leisure activities, especially among the young. But one particular type of game, so-called online role-playing games, are increasingly causing problems. South Korea reports more and more high school dropouts, divorces and private debts due to the fact that people deeply immerse themselves in these online worlds.
Luckily, our players don't play RPG games, role-playing games. They are like drugs, like a cocaine. You know, there are a lot of cases where people have lost their families. They will rob a bank to buy an item on the internet, which is worth nothing. It's only worth what someone is willing to pay for.
Scenes like this are no exception in South Korea. He is one of 4 million Lineage fans. Lineage is the most popular online role-playing game here. Around 8% of all gamers are seriously addicted to it. This man hasn't been home for 3 days already. He not only left his family, but also his wife for the game. One reason why some immerse themselves so deeply in online role-playing games is the fact that they have no definite ending, unlike other games. The key goal is not to win, but to create a maximum of wealth, status and power, and to stay in control of events in the game. In order to rise to power and status, players have to acquire a wide range of weapons and items, valuable objects that provide them with status and special skills. It takes hundreds of hours to collect enough of them. At the Lineage customer office, such outbursts happen almost daily. He had all of his game items stolen by another player. Since he cannot prove this, the game developer refuses to give them back to him. It's a catastrophe for him. He spent a lot of money to level up his character with powerful items and weaponry. In order to save time and advance more quickly in the game, players can buy items for real money in PC rooms or at auction websites. Although item trading is in fact forbidden, the yearly profits made with them are estimated at $120 million in Korea alone. Some PC room owners employ people who do nothing but collect items in order to sell them later at a profit. Item hunters earn about $8 an hour, plus 3 meals a day and a place to sleep. A convincing argument for many to get involved in this illegal business. The majority of workers in these so-called item factories were homeless before they started this job.
제대로 준비가 되지 않은 상황에서 어떤 발전 보급만을 주장하다 보니까 확산이 되고 환경이 되어 버렸지만 아무런 준비가 없이 사람들이 접하게 되고 그러다 보니 무방비하게 노출돼서 이런 인터넷 중독이라고 하는 아니면 역기능적인 그런 상황들이 발생한 거에 대해서는 문제가 있다고 봐요. 이제 그렇지만 가장 큰 이런 문제를 발생시키게 된 요인에는 사회 전반적인 가치가 더 큰 원인 제공이 아닐까라고 생각을 하거든요.
For 2 years, Brandon Whitehead spent all his free time in the world of EverQuest, a popular online role-playing game similar to Lineage. The game soon became the only thing in his life.
I'm not gonna lie, EverQuest is addictive. I mean, it's just like, I guess you could refer it to any other addictive thing. It's just when you get to the point where you need to have it, then you will like do whatever it takes to get it. A lot of situations where I couldn't stop playing. I mean, I would sit there for 16 hours a day. I mean, that's not casual gaming. Casual gaming is like playing for 45 minutes and turning off the computer and go and spend time with your family. I would play for 16 hours a day. When I played EverQuest, all my cares were gone. I mean, playing the game would just drown out all of my problems that I had. And it did work. I didn't think about a lot of my problems for a really long time. This is my school that I attended for 2 years, which is the most I've ever attended a high school. And this is where I met all my friends that I have now, the friends that mean the most to me out of all the friends that I've ever had.
His colleagues at the high school were the first real friends Brandon ever had. Before his family settled here in Tacoma 5 years ago, he had never lived anywhere longer than 1.5 years. A difficult situation in which to make friends. So much the worse was his disappointment when his high school contemporaries moved away to attend college. It was a hard blow for Brandon.
The first time in my life, everybody had left me. I didn't know how to react, and I got really depressed about that because I was alone for so long, and so much that I just fell into depression. And that's when I started playing EverQuest a lot. And the people in the game became my friends to replace the ones that I had in real life.
That was 2 years ago. Since then, Brandon only sees his high school friends during the vacation. The lonely weeks and months in between are filled up with EverQuest.
Ow. I miss the companionship. And I miss the joking around with them and always having something to do instead of just sitting at home all the time.
Unlike his friends, Brandon decided to drop out of high school. His parents have watched his game passion with growing worry ever since.
As time went on, it became more of his focus than school. His priorities changed completely. And now my concerns are that he doesn't have a life.
Liz Woolley is no longer prepared to just sit back and watch. Since her son committed suicide in front of his computer 2 years ago, she's determined to warn the public about the addictive potential of online games.
There's people who need help, and nobody's helping them, and nobody believes them. And so many people that I've talked to, they say when we tell people we're addicted to a computer game, they think we're nuts. I believe 100% that God was sending me a message when my son died. I knew when I saw him and he was sitting in front of the EverQuest computer game, I said, my first thought, he killed himself because of this game. And I know that my son knew that if I found him like that, that I was going to create holy hell about that game. Because he knew what I thought about it.
Shawn's death was the result of a long and tough struggle between Liz, Shawn, and in the end, EverQuest.
It became his God because he used that for his self-esteem, for his reason for living. He left everything else behind.
Shawn always played computer games, even as a little boy. EverQuest, however, was different to other games. Shawn spent more time with it, often 10 to 14 hours a day. Liz didn't pay much attention to this in the beginning.
I just thought it was a game. I'm a computer programmer. I know about computers. Never in my life would I have dreamt that somebody would have made a game so intense. I didn't know it was happening to thousands of people.
Hi, my name is Shawn Woolley of this humble.
Liz says that the game totally changed Shawn and turned her once fun-loving son into a depressive person who tried to avoid life. Shawn had big plans when he was a kid. He wanted to study graphic design and become an artist. But he didn't make it to college and had to keep his head above water with pizza jobs. With EverQuest, he could forget his frustration. After a while, he even quit his job in order to be able to play the game as long as he wanted, and he retreated completely into his online universe.
He thought he should be able to play the game the rest of his life because that's what he liked. And that included a job. And I'm going like, I think you need to get a job to pay the bills and to get money. And you know, if you want to do something you like, get a hobby. But it does not necessarily have to be your job. But he just thought that if he didn't like it, he wasn't going to do it.
For 3 months, Liz tried to get her son to look for a job, without success. There just aren't many choices in a small town like Hudson. And Shawn refused to sell fast food again. Soon, all they did was fight. Liz was also worried about her son's health. He had been an epileptic ever since his childhood. When he played, he tended to forget to take his medicine and had heavy seizures. The way in which Shawn neglected his life and his health left only one conclusion for Liz. EverQuest is a drug that's deliberately designed to lure players into addiction.
It rewires your brain, and once your brain gets rewired saying, I have to have this, I have to have this, you're not going to get out of it until you go through some stringent therapy.
Liz believes that the developer of EverQuest, Sony, intentionally made the game so that people would spend more and more time with it. The fact that it becomes increasingly difficult to make progress the longer one plays is the perfect proof for her. Sony refuted the allegations, saying it's the player's responsibility how long they play. Liz says with time, many are no longer free to decide.
I thought my son was trying to avoid life and he was using this as an excuse. I didn't know the game was written to get him in there, to draw him in there, and to keep him in there so that they could make money. I did not know that at all.
I used to just hate the woman for her ideas and just blaming the game for her son's death and whatnot. I mean, you can't really place the blame on somebody or a corporation for something like that. I mean, it's not the game's fault, it's his fault. People have problems, and some people don't know how to deal with them. He may have been one of those people.
Brandon Whitehead knows Liz from various EverQuest chat rooms, where her accusations were heavily criticized. He doesn't see himself as a victim, quite the opposite. Early last year, Brandon decided to stop playing EverQuest. He recorded his way out of the game with a video camera.
But pretty sure quitting is a good decision. It's, I don't really regret it at all. Now I don't feel like I have an obligation to sit around on the weekend to play a video game like I did then, with being involved as heavily as I was with the guild and the friends that I had. I would always have to help them do shit on the weekend. Now I don't have to, and I have the freedom that I've always wanted. I had sat around doing nothing but playing games for so long that I didn't want to get back into that groove again. So I realized one day every time my friends go away to school, Same things keep happening. I end up sitting around playing video games, so I said, I'm not playing anymore. I just quit.
For 4 weeks, everything went fine. Brandon had a part-time job at a children's daycare centre. But then he had trouble getting along with the children in his charge. The feeling of having no influence made him feel useless. He quit and soon fell back into his old lifestyle.
What time is it, Jeff?
5:30.
5:30 in the morning. And we are going home after doing what?
Playing video games.
All fucking night. On a Friday. We're fucking losers.
Hey, look, it's light out.
Everything is always changing. I mean, I can't ever choose one thing. So one week, one thing matters. Next week, something else doesn't matter. It just depends on where my mind is. For some reason lately, I've been all motivated to not sit around on my ass as much anymore. I don't know how to explain it, but I'm just sick of doing the same shit all the time. It's depressing. I'm sick of living at my parents' house, and it's now part of realizing that I'm a lazy ass high school dropout. Things must change if I ever want to be successful in whatever it is that I want to do. Wishful thinking is what it was. Just wishing that I'm actually going to be able to do something, like to turn things around, you know, like saying that I want to actually change things, but never following through with it. Just try and put myself in the frame of mind where, hey, I'm actually going to do it this time, but it doesn't work out.
His ambitions soon evaporated. Brandon wanted to find a job he really liked in the music business or in the computer game industry. But after weeks of fruitless searching, he gave up and sat unemployed at home all summer. The disappointment over his failure made him despair.
I can't avoid the fact that I've wasted hundreds and hundreds of hours, if not thousands of hours, playing video games and being on the computer. It's too late now. I mean, every time I say I'm going to change something, I never do. I don't know why. Just always feels like I'm always getting put down rather than getting up, you know?
It has gotten to the point where he's been extremely frustrated with his life, and he hasn't been able to sort out exactly what it is that he wants to do. His dad and I have tried to be as supportive as we could, and it's difficult, but, you know, I can't put my child out on the street. I mean, a lot of people say that's what you should do, but I just can't do that.
Liz Woolley didn't see any other alternative. After 6 months of fighting over EverQuest and Shawn's future, Liz decided to kick Shawn out onto the street.
He was out of my house because I was getting so frustrated and upset that I couldn't cope. And, you know, so it was like either me or him, and he needed to go because nothing was working at our house, so I made him leave the house.
Throwing him out had another purpose. Since Shawn no longer had a home, he'd qualify for state care. That meant assisted living in a group home and psychological support. Liz knew this and was counting on it. She hoped that professional counselling would help Shawn break free of EverQuest and participate in life outside of the game again. What Liz wasn't prepared for was that the therapists and doctors found Shawn's childhood and family to be the explanation for his rejection of life, not the game.
One of Shawn's main problems was that he had a seizure disorder. And I think that he ended up experiencing that he was out of control in his life. And because of the seizures, that he didn't know what was going to happen next, so to speak. And he ended up becoming more and more avoidant, just in his behavior in general, because he wasn't sure of himself.
I don't think he had any more self-doubts than anybody else. I think that at that stage in life, everybody's got self-doubts. But that's a very vulnerable stage because you're just starting and you're finding out what it's like in the real world, and it is not pretty.
Besides his disease, the therapists found the extremely tense relationship between Shawn and his mother to be responsible for his depression. They thought that Liz's expectations of him were too high. They suggested breaking off contact with Liz for a while in order to free Shawn from the pressure of his mother.
I just do as much as I can. I mean, I'm always looking for more ways to improve myself, more ways to do better. And, you know, so then I suggest that he do this too. And he'd be upset because I just didn't think that that one thing he did was enough.
Shawn did well in the group home, far from home. He found a new job and new friends. After 6 months, he decided to rent his own apartment. The social workers and therapists visited him regularly. He made good progress. They helped him buy a computer, as he had decided to study for a computer degree in his spare time. Everything went well. Then, after 5 months, Shawn all of a sudden broke off all contact and refused to see anyone. Liz was alarmed. When she failed for days to reach him, she broke into his apartment and found her son dead in front of EverQuest.
And my first thought when I saw him was, my God, he killed himself over that damn game. Because I don't know why else he would shoot himself in front of the game. If he was shooting himself because he was depressed or whatever, or he didn't like his life, he wouldn't have done it in front of the game.
But if the game was his life?
If it was his life and it was so important to him, why did he kill himself? If it was solving all his answers, why didn't he just keep playing? It should have been a solution. That's why I think something happened.
Shawn's suicide leaves a series of unanswered questions. To this day, no one knows why he did it. Liz believes that an unrequited love for an EverQuest player drove him to take his life. The social workers refused to take a position for fear that any statement could be used against them. Only the psychologist who signed him up for the state care program is ready to speak out.
I would say that there was always the possibility that Shawn could commit suicide. His depression got to a place where he had so much emotional instability and was so vulnerable that that was the only way out for him.
A year ago, Liz was determined to bring Sony to court for the death of her son. She made headlines with the case. Experts, however, doubt the trial would have had any chance of success.
Obviously, this woman is crushed and hurt and grieving, and she wants somebody to be responsible. And there may not be a clear answer to that. Just like when anybody commits suicide, even if they're not involved in a game, people want an answer as to how and why and what caused it. And the game probably did amplify his isolation and depression. We know that this kind of technology can do that. It can decrease people's social skills. It can increase isolation, and we know that isolation enhances mental illness and enhances depression and feeds it. So in that sense, it very well could have contributed to it. But I would look at it as a contributing, amplifying factor, not as a causative factor, because there were other issues in this boy's life. I mean, he was in treatment.
Meanwhile, Liz has given up her plan to sue Sony. Now she's taking action against Shawn's therapists and counselors. She accuses them of facilitating the way back to her son's game addiction by helping him buy a computer.
Hello, Liz.
Hello, Dr. Hoisted. How are you?
Good to see you again.
Good to see you, too. I guess my thing is when he started withdrawing, nobody pulled them back. And that was in August. That was after he got the computer at home. And that was after he'd been in the program. He started doing better. He was on his medication. And he was seeing, you know, on a regular basis, his caseworker. And then when the caseworker got him the computer, he stopped seeing everybody. He quit going to his doctor appointments. He quit taking his medications. And nobody did anything.
Well, I don't know that nobody did anything.
Well, they were trying to see him, but because he was not responding, they just said they didn't do anything else.
So I think the challenge becomes how much does the county control people's lives or take direction that way versus how much do people have their own choice about the support they get. And
but I'm thinking if they're addicted to something, they really don't have a choice.
Right, that's true. And I think that, you know, we, the professional, are not used to dealing with this kind of addiction. That even the workers there, I don't think anybody fully appreciated how involved Shawn was in this game. So in that sense, we knew that he needed help. We just didn't know the underlying problem in regard to the game.
If this kid is isolating himself in his room 12, 15, 20 hours a day, that should be certainly a focus of the treatment. Any doctor that doesn't address that, I don't want to say he's negligent, but he's certainly missing an important piece because that's a very skewed part of that person's life.
If I had to do it over again, I would have done it a lot different. I would have smashed the computer. I thought about doing it. But I would have addressed the game, and I would have got him into help with somebody who recognizes this as a problem.
People don't take it seriously. They see it as entertainment, and entertainment is kind of, you know, it's a harmless pastime. And it can be, but it sometimes isn't. And it's not evil, it's just powerful. You know, let's not judge it and label it. Let's just acknowledge it and make room for the fact that it's powerful, and let's talk about it and deal with it. That's all.
Shawn's case posed difficult questions for the game industry. To what extent are developers responsible for the influence a game has on a player's life? Virtual worlds and characters might be nothing more than code and pixels, but the time and feelings that players invest in them are real. So far, only a few ambitious developers seem to be willing to seriously reflect on the social and moral responsibility that this demands.
I mean, that's the frightening thing about it. I don't think that we really think very much about it. Certainly not on a day-to-day basis. Maybe in terms of concept, I think we do think about it in terms of the concept of the game that we're making, but not down to the detail of the games that we're making. I mean, especially when you're making something that goes over many years, you tend to forget about, you know, you forget about that responsibility. So, but personally, you know, I think it's essential.
So-called usability tests are an effective way of evaluating people's response to a game. Most developers administrate them.
On task, we'll have you go ahead and use your guild icon. So go ahead and try to use.
A carefully chosen, demographically selected group of computer game fans are invited into a test lab and observed while playing. 2 test administrators and a camera carefully record all of the players' actions and reactions. The results are then sent to the developers.
He's just walked straight past it and across the big blue circle. Watching these playability tapes, it makes me feel incredibly nervous seeing what people are doing in the game and whether or not they're going to enjoy it and whether or not they're going to get immersed in the environment. And I feel completely powerless when they're doing that. The sense of power only comes when you're creating it yourself, and then as soon as you release it, you're kind of like a child watching people and hoping desperately that they enjoy it.
Yeah, because you can't really read a book in the wrong way, and you can't really watch a film in the wrong way. You can draw the wrong conclusions, but you know, there's only so many points during watching a linear experience or involving yourself in a linear experience where you can do that. With a video game, you can play it in the wrong way right from the word go.
a lesson the developers of Fable painfully had to learn. In order to imitate the real world as best as possible, they wanted children to be part of the world of Fable from the very beginning. But then something happened.
Nothing entered into my mind, anything about, what about these children, until I walked into testing. And then I saw, on the ground, in the middle of the town, tens of bodies of little children lying about in pools of blood. And this teenage kid going around hacking every child down within the town because he could. And I thought, my God, we can't have this. We can't produce a game where you can go and mass murder towns of children. And it didn't even enter into my mind that people would want to do that. But absolutely, if you give the people that power, they will do it.
Activate the quest by going to the quest.
Luckily, such things can be prevented by establishing clear restrictions for the freedom that Fable provides. And the fact that Fable has a definite ending also prevents players from immersing themselves all too deeply into the game. But online games are different. They can be played forever and leave developers far less control over the way in which people relate to their characters. Even the most cleverly designed tests can never find out how individual players identify with their digital personas.
This technology will always be seductive and available to people who want to use it to withdraw, and for whom it is the perfect way to be not lonely, yet not needing to really respond to the demands of friendship.
Personally, I think it's a good thing if somebody who'd otherwise be sitting in their bedroom at home and not interacting with people gets to interact with people, even in a fantasy landscape or even in a chat room or on the internet. That's surely a good thing. It's pulling together people who would not normally get to communicate with other people and giving the opportunity to feel more confident talking to people, and even getting to invent new personalities for themselves and play around a bit with their own sense of self. That's a good thing. That's healthy. It starts to get unhealthy when people get obsessed about something, but that obsession is a bad thing in any context. If somebody gets obsessed with an ex-girlfriend in the real world, you don't blame it on people having a relationship, or you don't blame it on love. You blame it on that person getting too obsessed with the thing they're getting involved with.
As you can tell, I got a haircut. It's a big change for me. Tomorrow is the big day. The day that I depart to California.
Spring makes me wanna dance on your grave with flowers in my hand.
Brandon's trip to California last summer was a dream come true. His high school friends study there at the film school. He had been planning to visit them there for quite some time, and even played with the idea of moving there to start a new life.
Right now we're in Malibu. We're just having a little bit of fun on the beach. Yeah, I don't miss video games at all. Actually, I'm kind of glad that I don't have them around me, because who would want to be sitting around playing games when you have a beautiful place like this?
Yeah, that's what inspired me. It makes me want to do something about the situation that I'm in now, but once again, I just don't see it happening.
He needs to find out what the real world is. To me, he's leading a very sheltered life in front of that computer all day long. He doesn't know what the real world is like. He needs to find out what it takes to earn a living, to become not necessarily totally independent, but to become more independent than what he is, because he's not independent at all right now. He is totally dependent. And that bothers me a lot.
Brandon has had to give up his dream of moving to California for the time being. His parents refused to support him any longer and found him a job at his father's company. The job has helped him regain financial security. But until he finds the confidence to fulfill his dreams, he still has a long way to go.
Yeah, I think about it on a daily basis. I'm not getting any younger. I mean, I look back last year and I wonder what the hell I was doing. I don't know what it's going to be like in 20 years. I'm afraid to see what I'll look back on myself as in 20 years. Hopefully things will be a lot different.
What are you afraid of seeing when you mentioned looking back 20 years from now?
All the time wasted. So much time wasted.
Creative challenge, escape, or waste of time. The debate about the significance and meaning of play is not new. What are new are the new technologies at our disposal that allow us to construct imaginary worlds and to fully immerse ourselves in them. The benefits of these new possibilities are as manifold as the risks involved.
The people who learn the most from their lives on the screen are the people who use it as an opportunity for self-reflection, as an opportunity to say, what am I missing? Why am I missing it? Why haven't I gotten it in my life? Can I get it here? And what can I bring back to the rest of my life? My embodied life.
But again, there are broader issues here. The fact that we have to entertain ourselves and numb ourselves all the time, if it's either with television or gaming or some other form of entertainment, I think is a bigger issue. Why do we have to numb ourselves so much? Why can't we deal with reality? Why won't we deal with reality? And what are we telling ourselves and our children when we show that we can't deal with reality?